So, welcome back to the 30-Second Success Podcast, where clarity, courage, and connection come to life through the decisions that define us. I'm your host, Laura Templeton, and today we're diving into bold, messy, and meaningful moments that help us move forward in business and in life. So, let's jump in. And today, I have my good friend Mike O'Neill here with me. Mike is the founder of Bench Builders and the host of the Get Unstuck and On Target podcast. I've had the privilege of being on already. I am so grateful that you are here with us today, Mike. Thank you for joining me. And I would love to invite you to share your 30-second message.
Well, I'd be happy to. For those listening, my name's Mike O'Neill. The name of my business is Bench Builders, and the focus is on how do you build your management bench strength. So I work primarily with executives who want to build their bench so they can scale their business. And what we do primarily is help them in two ways: developing their first line supervisors and working one-on-one with the key leadership.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that you have a passion for leadership. And you and I have had some deep conversations, even online in LinkedIn, about compassionate leadership. So you speak my language, my friend. Do me a favor. Let's take us back to a 30-second decision that changed everything for you. What happened in that moment, and what came next?
Hmm. I think I was supposed to know this answer, but I'm going to give it to you off the top of my head. A 30-second decision I had to make. Um, I think the most obvious one would be when COVID hit and the world was asking, what's next? And I chose, at the encouragement of someone who was advising me, Mike, why don't you start a podcast? And I said yes. I had no idea what I was saying yes to, but in that 30 seconds, it opened up my world in ways that I did not realize that I would still be doing it. Namely, I get a chance to meet fascinating people like you. I learn from each and every guest. And in the process of getting ready for that podcast, I get better at my own craft. So in that 30 seconds, I said yes. And now I'm 200 plus episodes in.
Wow, that's beautiful. 200 plus episodes, and it's the Get Unstuck and On Target podcast. And for our listeners, share a little bit about the kind of conversations that you have on your podcast and how meaningful they are to your audience.
I shared that this started when COVID kind of hit, when we were all stuck. I thought this would have a limited shelf life because we would all kind of figure it out. Here's what I was surprised to learn when I invite the right guest on. This is a guest who's willing to be open. What they are doing time and time again is I only have one question that's scripted, and is I'm going to ask them, can you share an example where either you or your organization got stuck? And what did it take to get unstuck? Other than that one scripted question, it's free form. And so I try to follow where they are, where this is kind of going. I want to feature them in their experiences. But what I found is when given the choice, more often than not, the guests offer personal examples, which I'm very touched by. They're they're being vulnerable. They're saying, "This is how I failed," and for them to do that is something that I do not take for granted.
Mm. It is beautiful when your guests open up to you, and I know
Mhm.
I've experienced that recently as well. And you you, you realize that their willingness to share their vulnerability in order for other people to learn and glean from what they've experienced, and I think that's so powerful. And I love that that's something that has touched your life as well. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. So, have you ever made a fast decision that was scary or left you feeling uncertain about what to do next?
I've made many such decisions. Life being what it is, particularly business life, it's coming fast. Or you want me
What
to give an example?
I'm open to it if you have one.
I don't know if I have an example other than what I would say is what I've tried to do is surround myself with people who are adaptable, and myself included. And so if you're willing to adapt, you can usually survive just about anything that life throws your way.
I love that adaptability. That's a great suggestion and recommendation for people to become more adaptable. And I think that's one of the things that, keeping in mind, especially in your practice, being coachable as well, right? Being willing to seek help and seek counsel when you feel like you're making the scary decision, you're not sure which direction to go, and or you've made the scary decision and now it's like, oh no, what did I do?
Hmm.
And you need sometimes counsel, seeking counsel, whether it's a mentor or a coach, really is helpful. But I love the idea of being adaptable to the situation, because sometimes we make a scary decision and it turns out being the right one.
Yes.
And that's really powerful when that happens as well. So I love that you shared that you made the decision to jump in and start a podcast, and really to support your audience and continuing that long after COVID. And now you're 200 episodes in. So what ripple effect did that decision have on your business, on the people that you serve, and on your audience?
Hmm. In a number of ways. At the beginning, I just invited onto the podcast people who I would find interesting to speak with. Over time, I've been much more strategic, and that is invite people onto the podcast who I think, based on our podcast prep call, which I have with every guest, is what I'm looking for is when do they light up? What topics can they talk about that they can light up about? And therefore, what I'm trying to do is be mindful of I'm featuring them. And when their eyes light up, then we know that we're off kind of to the races. What has
Mm,
evolved over time is who I invite onto the podcast. And therefore, I've kind of gravitated away from just interesting people to people who I believe that our listeners would really benefit from hearing from. My target audience are decision makers, key decision
mm,
makers, who have the authority to even bring my own company in for supervisory training or to bring me in as a coach for themselves or members of their senior team. So I'm constantly trying to think as what is it we could talk about that would benefit them in getting the word out and what would
mm.
benefit my audience, which is my target audience of key decision makers.
Love that. I love it. And that's where that servant leadership comes in. And I think it's so beautiful that you model that for your audience, for your clients, for the people that you're bringing in to your podcast as guests. And that's so powerful when we can model that for other people. So thank you for sharing that with us. Quick reminder, if you are enjoying the episode, please take a moment to like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast. Your support helps us reach more people with stories and strategies that inspire real connection. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about what challenges you've overcome that most people don't see from the outside.
As a business owner, people in the corporate world are envious. Ah, you can work when you want. It must be nice not to have a boss, et cetera, et cetera. Probably the biggest misnomer is owning a business is hard. There's so much that you have to learn, so many things you have to figure out to succeed. And what I'm trying to do in this process is acknowledge I'm learning a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes, but what I've learned in the process is I've identified of all the things that I can do, what are the things that I do best, and what are the things that I enjoy most. And what I'm finding of all the things I could do, those are the two things: developing supervisors and executives. May I elaborate a little bit on that?
Oh, please do. Please do.
I'm a little embarrassed to tell you that I'm just now realizing at this point in my business that I'm kind of working both ends of the management spectrum because what I'm finding is most companies pride themselves in promoting people from within.
Mhm,
They're good at what they do. They must be a good supervisor. They give them the title, but they don't give them the tools. And
mm,
what happens is they're all thrown to the wolves. They figure it out eventually. And what I'm finding is it starts when you're named a supervisor. That is probably the hardest transition to go from a peer to being the supervisor. It's hard on the person who's been promoted. It's actually also hard on the person who was a former peer. And so there's so much that goes into that. So what we focus on is what are those things you have to be comfortable doing to be successful as a first line supervisor. And what we do is just break it down in a way that they can build confidence. You opened this podcast by describing, is it the three, almost it's three C's, was it not?
Yes, clarity, confidence, connection.
In many respects, that describes what we're trying to accomplish, and that is be clear of what is that their role is as a supervisor, to have confidence because it doesn't come immediately. And then the connection, you're managing others. If you can get that quality done. So that is one dimension that I just kind of love speaking to. Most of my personal work, though, is that of a coach, working with the senior leaders in the organization, people who are supposed to have all the answers, but they don't, but they have built this wall around them. We all need people who they can just be open with. They've been successful. It got them to that point. But what they're finding is life and the world is coming at them and their organizations fast. What do they have to do the adapting? And who can I truly lean on to help me navigate those things? So I position myself from a coaching standpoint less as telling them what to do. They know what to do. My job is to help them get clarity on what that is so they can go execute on their own plan.
So I'm glad that you shared that with us. One of the things I would love for you to go maybe just a little bit deeper on that is what's one of the misnomers, or what is the misnomer around executive coaching? What is like the why do people misunderstand the need for it?
Hmm. I find myself, I'm a little bit out of, there's some tension. I name my business Bench Builder because I love sports. But when you think about a coach in sports, what they're doing is typically they're blowing a whistle, they're yelling, they're telling people exactly what to do.
Mhm.
In many respects, the approach I take to coaching is almost the exact opposite. I'm not there to tell them what to do, but what I am there to do is listen and listen very closely. And in listening, to be able to ask them questions that they gain insights about themselves and about them circumstance. So if they can gain insights themselves, then they can own whatever it is they decide they want to work on. And then my role is to simply come alongside them, help them get clarity on what they want to do, help them be mindful of what has to happen for that to take place, and give them kind of a means of getting there in a relatively business-like way. I'm not a touchy-feely kind of coach. So you're asking about misnomers. I'm not the warm, fuzzy kind of person. I'm going to be asking hard questions, and in the answers that they provide, help them convert those into a plan that they can go do that helps move them further along, either personally, professionally, or organizationally.
I love it. So, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I love about the coaching world, right? It's really to me, the misnomer is, or misunderstanding that people have around coaching. They think somebody's going to tell you what to do. And I think coaches are designed more to draw out your best experiences, your best habits. How do we take all of the tools and all of the knowledge and help you move forward with that? And I think that's the beauty of what coaches have to offer. And so many people are struggling out there, struggling, trying to do business on their own and figure it out by themselves. But when you bring a coach into the mix, somebody who can kind of hold up a mirror and reflect back to you what they see, changes everything. think it's so powerful to have a coach, but it's also powerful to have the right coach.
Hmm.
And there's so many different coaches out there that can support you in various ways. So making sure that you have a deep understanding of what you're trying to accomplish when you're interviewing coaches. And I think that's powerful that you're very, very intuitive as to who you work with. I think that's really powerful that you know who you love supporting. It's the executives and the supervisors because you saw in the marketplace that those supervisors aren't receiving the tools that they need to grow and to really embrace that supervisory role. And a lot of times they have to struggle their way through it. How much easier is how much more beneficial is it to the company we give them right tools and hire the right people to help them succeed?
You
It
know,
matters. It's an impact.
can I pick up something you just said that I probably should have said earlier? But when I mentioned that most companies pride themselves in promoting people into supervision, but they don't give them the
Mhm.
tools, do you know what they do? They keep promoting them.
Yes.
And what happens is that as they get further up, they never learned how to do it
Right.
correctly.
Right.
And what ends
Mhm.
up happening is when you're saying you're working primarily with first line supervisors, every time that we've worked with organizations, what do they want to do? They want to begin slipping in their bosses or their bosses' bosses into the program because they never got that. You know what's
Right.
somewhat surprising that, at least for me, even those in the most senior roles, they mask it well, but it's
Mhm.
very, very common that they're insecure.
Mhm.
They were put in that role and they really weren't prepared for that role. It's a huge difference when you're in a senior leadership role. It's beyond the managing components. What does a leader look like? How do they act? What can
Mhm.
they learn to be more effective as a leader? Those are the things that really excite me and what I get to do every day.
I love that. I love that. And I know your clients really benefit from the work that you've done. I've watched you. I've seen what you're putting out there, what you're sharing with the world, the work that you're doing and even on your podcast, I can see that people benefit from the deep connection you make with your clients on a regular basis. It's beautiful. So, if today's conversation got you thinking about your brand, your message, or how you're showing up in the world, come check out the Brand Success Hub. It's my on demand resource center packed with tools, trainings, and templates to help you get clear, consistent, and confident in your brand. And yes, Mike has agreed that he will provide us with a 10-minute teach so that you can go deeper into learning some of the amazing tools that he has to share with our audience. So just head on over to 30secondsuccess.com and click on the hub, and I'll see you on the inside. So, Mike, what advice would you give someone facing a moment of indecision?
Hmm. You know, it's the first thing I did was pause. And I think what I would say is all too often, particularly when you're in a leadership role, you are of the opinion you have to decide fast. My encouragement is decide slow and listen to your gut. But perhaps if I had to have one piece of advice, is have people that you trust who you can turn to when you have a very, very difficult decision, particular decision that's going to have ramifications. So my number one advice would be always have trusted people around you who you can go to for that advice.
I love that. I love that. Bringing trusted people around, right? That's about connecting and building community and really showing up for one another. And it's very powerful. So, what do you wish more people understood about leadership, entrepreneurship, or growth?
I want to pick on the third one, and that is growth. If you think you've got it figured out, you don't. And the people I enjoy being around, personally and professionally, are people who want to continue to learn and grow. And we have so many resources, the hub that you just mentioned. People can tap into resources that were not available just a few years ago. It just wouldn't happen. is that if they're willing to invest in themselves, to learn, and maybe do the things that don't come so easy. If you're willing
Mm,
to try that, is that you do grow. You grow because you gain a little more confidence. But if you're willing to do so with a degree of humility, because we all going to make mistakes on that, but take advantage of the incredible resources that are available. Surround yourself with wise counsel, and never stop growing.
beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, what's the best way? I'm going to leave it right there. I had another question I was going to ask you, but I like what you just said about growth. I think it's so beautiful. Seeking counsel, just it's amazing the connections that you are encouraging. So, thank you for that. What's the best way for people to connect with you or go deeper into your work?
I would love to connect on LinkedIn. And so I'm active on LinkedIn. I try to post most weekdays, and I try to provide content that people can relate to, if you would. So I would just love to connect on LinkedIn. Naturally, in the show notes would be the website, but probably the fastest way is reach out LinkedIn. Let's connect there. Um, and if you were to listen to or watch an episode, here's the reality for me: it's what you see is what you get. If watching an episode with me, you kind of go, I don't think he can help me, then I can't. But if what you see and what you hear, that's pretty much what you're going to experience if you're a client of mine.
Beautiful. I love it. So, before we go, what final thought or encouragement would you leave our listeners with today?
I'm just looking at the name of your business and the kind of the model in which, and that is when I said that if you've got a difficult decision, you might want to pause. But what I will say, all too often, those 30 seconds can have a profound impact. Don't fritter away time. Be mindful that time is it's a gift. Take full advantage of it. Life is coming fast, but be willing to pause, but don't pause too long. Be willing to act.
Love it. Thank you so much. You're such a blessing to be around. Thank you so much, Mike. I love our time together. Thank you so much for joining us on the 30-Second Success Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's inspiring conversation. Until then, stand in your brand, trust your voice, and remember, success is just 30 seconds away.